Now, Pavarotti was a good friend.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti. I'm here to discuss this Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions. I'm not here to slander, so let's get into it. Today, I want to discuss something that I have absolutely come to realize going through this 300 and something page filing by the defense on change of venue. And it's all about the negative media coverage of Kohberger in the Moscow area. It should be about the negative media coverage of Kohberger in the world. Because as I've sat back, I have gone through many things from the beginning of this case. Many things that law enforcement stated and that the prosecutor stated, and the things that have been discussed now in court. And I've come to this conclusion. Law enforcement actually hasn't officially said anything about this case. Once the arrest of Kohberger was made, the only thing law enforcement stated was the prosecutor stated the PCA will be coming out and you'll be able to learn more about the case with the PCA. That's it. They haven't said anything else. Even through the court proceedings where we learned that, Kohberger never stalked the victims, and it was said in a way by the prosecutor and the judge as if it's the stupidest thing that they ever heard, that Kohberger stalked the victims. So where is all of this coming from? Where is our minds on all the things that we have preconceived notions about this case, really even preconceived notions about what law enforcement's objectives are in this case? I mean, I have really blamed them a lot for the false narratives in this case, and now that I really take a step back and look, they really hadn't put out any false narratives. They've just put out shoddy detective work. I mean, that's basically what we can ascertain from that, is their detective work is terrible. And they haven't really made any statements to the contrary. In fact, the only statement I can find that's relevant was the one that Bill Thompson made when he said that they were targeted victims and it involved drugs. They haven't come out with a motive, with a scenario, anything in public. So where do we get all of this stuff? Folks, it's the media. The media has absolutely perpetuated every preconceived notion even us on YouTube have about the facts in the case and the concepts behind what law enforcement is trying to do. It's all not true. It's all just brainwashing. And I'm going to show you that in this one. And here's the main point I want to make is, for example, the IgG. That IgG has never been stated by law enforcement or the prosecutor that said that the IgG is what led to Kohberger. They said, they admitted in court that they initiated an IgG investigation. They have never said that they completed it. And they have said in court that the IgG would not be used as evidence in the trial. So I hear people still bringing up the IgG and trying to decipher the IgG and make it relevant. The IgG isn't relevant. And anybody that brings that up at this point should know that. And when they bring up the IgG, I believe they're bringing it up trying to get the defense to focus in on something that's not going to help them in the case. They have never even stated that the IgG was completed. Don't focus on the IgG, defense. It's a ruse. Focus on what you need to focus on. But where did all this stuff come from? It's insane. Hey, you know what? Let me show you. For example, even the IgG. Here is an article that came out on January 10th, 2023. It says how police actually cracked the Idaho killings case. Investigators used forensic genealogy to zero in on suspect Bryan Kohberger, but they aren't saying so. Again, they aren't saying so. They never said this. So when we look at an article like this, and I'm not going to read the whole stupid article, but as it gets it, all it does is it regurgitates what's said in the PCA. And then down here, it gets to, rather, according to a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation, so some unnamed source, with whom I spoke, a key reason police focused on Kohberger as a likely suspect has to do with something that is never mentioned in the 18-page affidavit forensic genealogy. It was only after investigators utilized a technique reliant on genealogy databases to determine who'd left the DNA on the tan leather knife sheath that police requested a search warrant for Kohberger's phone records. According to this source, up until that point in late December, he hadn't stood out among all the other Elantra owners. The source said, something that is reinforced by a close, informed reading of the affidavit. Now, I will agree that a close, informed reading of the affidavit, obviously they were not on to him even being the Elantra owner of his Elantra, not the one that was spotted on the video camera before December 20th, or at least December 19th. But law enforcement or the court, nobody has ever said that it was the genetic genealogy that led to Kohberger, and they've certainly never confirmed nor denied it. Even in the court proceedings, when you look at the court documents on the IGG, it never says that they completed the IGG. All of the information on the IGG comes from a news article like this very early on, January 10th. This is 10 days after they arrested Kohberger. So it all comes from an article like this, and then everybody else takes the article and moves out on it. And ABC and CBS, I believe, took an article like this and moved on it. And all they can cite is a source in, what was it? Let me quote it correctly. According to a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation. I mean, this could have been a cop that heard that they were doing an IGG, not one that actually knew the results of an IGG. So, again, this is just misinformation put out there by the media, and we've all taken it and we believe that it's gospel. What do we have here? New York Post. Oh, Idaho unaliving suspect Bryan Kohberger had an incel complex that drove him to unalive ex-FBI agent. Not unalive the ex-FBI agent, but unalive basically says an ex-FBI agent. This is on January 16th. Wonder where the incel crap came from. University of Idaho unaliving suspect Bryan Kohberger may have been driven to unalive by his history of social issues and a possible incel complex. A former FBI investigator told the Post. Maybe he's former, maybe he got fired because he sucked. The unalivings may have been an effort to assert some type of dominance, former FBI agent, security expert Pete Yakmetz explained to the Post this week. So you're a security expert, not a profiler? The eerie links between Bryan Kohberger and the BTK, Golden State, and Grim Sleeper unalivers. New York Post. On, when was this? January 3rd, 3 days after the arrest. Accused Idaho slasher Bryan Kohberger has eerie connections to several infamous serial unalivers, including BTK, Grim Sleeper, and Golden State Killer. And at the time of his arrest, he was studying at Washington State, but he was a star student at DeSales University under Dr. Kathleen Ramslin. She was famous for her collaboration with infamous serial unaliver Dennis Rader, the bind, torture, kill unaliver, on Confessions of a Serial Unaliver. And it's hard to believe this guy, and then he lived with us, said his daughter in an interview with Brian Enton talking about BTK. And down here you'll see, although investigators have remained tight-lipped about the specifics of the Moscow case, sources close to the investigation have told multiple news outlets that police identified Kohberger by using genetic genealogy, a process in which authorities identify the DNA of their suspect, then run it through a public database to trace potential relatives. The process is more exhaustive than police criminal databases, as the genealogy database contains samples from ordinary people who have voluntarily submitted DNA for testing. Interesting, isn't it? So you see, folks, from day one after the arrest of Kohberger, it has been an onslaught of mainstream media nonsense, bogus confidential sources, and opinions of so-called experts that has given everybody the perception of what this case is about. Law enforcement has never stated what the case is really about. Now, I have tried to open people's eyes to what this case is really about, what the investigation was really about. They just couldn't say it. And if you go back and you read their news releases and you read their public statements, they have never stated anything to the contrary, that this case is what it's really about. And what it's really about, folks, I've laid out for you. They just did a very poor investigation, and they came up with a suspect that is totally irrelevant to the case. I say that's from lack of experience and knowledge by the local guys and lack of focus on this case by the feds. They were focused on something else. But please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, post your thoughts, post your criticisms. I'll be working on that second part of the timeline video. Those are difficult to put together and require a lot of time, so it's going to take me a little bit to get that one out. But I'll let you know when it's coming. Until then, Pavarotti's out.